You're listening to the Sales Today podcast, and I'm your host, Fred Copestake. On this podcast, we explore how sales professionals can develop a more modern approach to selling, the application of virtual and hybrid selling techniques, how to create meaningful business relationships, and much more. And welcome to this episode of the Sales Today podcast, where I am delighted to be joined by Adem Manderovic. So Adem.
Correct.
Hi. And so, did I get that right?
You did. I was super impressed. Sorry to laugh and cut into your time there, but I was super impressed.
I've been practicing all day, mate. That's why. You take that glory away from me as though it's a surprise. No. Look, I'll fess up here. We were just having a little chat before I started recording, and I said, Adam, how do you want me to introduce you? And he says, just that washed up footballer. I went, what do you mean? And he started telling me the story. So, mate, can you start telling that story again? Because this is absolutely fascinating. We'll get into the business stuff in a bit. We've got plenty of time for that. Talk to me about that.
I guess so having spoken to people like yourself and other people that invited me on their podcast to talk about how did I get to talking about my coined phrases of dark prospecting and closed circuit selling, it's probably best to unpack how I got there. So it's a bit of a journey. And the best way that I can describe that was an acceleration through a life circumstance. And that looks like this. So through many years, I obviously tried to play Aussie rules football. That was my dad's dream. That's all I wanted to do, is make him proud. As you do, I moved across country to Melbourne to play football. Well, try to play football. I didn't make it the first time. I got shitty at them, played basketball in the state league. Then I went out to an open tryout, conned my way into there, sold the dream that I was good enough to play because I'd played state level anyway. And they were pretty happy with that for me to come to an open tryout for a reserve team. Went through that process, got on the list, got my number, got my jersey, and fell from a 4-story balcony and broke my back, my hips, my coccyx, my legs, my ankles, my feet. And that when you get to that point, I guess, when you're getting told that you're never going to stand again, you've got to really pull yourself together pretty quick on what can I do to make money? What can I do to enhance my mindset so that I can recover? And how am I not going to accept no for an answer? So having a background of, coming from weighing your food, competing in bodybuilding as well, and track and field at like a national level in high school, that was my baseline. Was I was going to not only play football again, I was going to run, I was going to hike mountains, I was going to go surfing, I was going to go snowboarding, whatever it took, and what that path to get there. Now, how does that tie into how I got to here with these circumstances? Because I had to learn, if I couldn't walk for about 3 years properly, right? So I was overweight, everything hurt. If my body swelled up, I literally couldn't go to work because I couldn't put my feet on the ground. So, you can imagine calling into the workplace that gives you the opportunity to work in a office-based setting with like an open plan call center. Hey, look, I'm not going to be in because I can't stand up today. You have to have heavily negotiated up front. So again, selling of this is my circumstance and I'm aware of the opportunity you're giving me, but we are going to come into this. And is that okay? So when I placed that call, there were times where I'd black out from pain. That's a hefty thing to say, but it did happen where I literally couldn't place that call, but they knew because I'd already prefaced that discussion. So how does that tie into this? Okay, so that gave me an acceleration of how can I apply myself with the skills I had from before that. I worked in high fashion doing suit sales as an area manager for the most expensive Australian suit brand called Christopher Cronus, right? So if I could do that with how to do like almost a reverse market, if you look at it from a recruitment perspective, what I was teaching them is, like the store managers, you would grab an item and preface that to the customer as this is a nice option, right? So how can we apply that to everyday selling? So if you get every part of the sales process corrected, so we know that the sales is broken process talks about the demand marketing is wrong, the ABM is wrong previously. I don't mean now, there are people doing it right now, but segmentally, right? The prospecting is wrong. How do we get to those people properly? How do we segment those markets? The skills are different. How do we do client activation? What does the communications plan look like? And what does the key account management look like properly? So if you take all of those skills from basically that, adding into a reverse market, knowing what this side of the equation wants, or the element of what they want to need, you're going to close the sale if you can do all of that. So that basically got me into an office setting where I could also learn like processing and KPI skills, and then I could apply that later on into the sales methodologies of how quick could we process this to get this. And yeah, that the rest is kind of where I ended up. But a huge amount of props needs to go to a mentor of mine called Mark Revel. Now, this guy basically humored all of my crazy ideas. Didn't fire me for writing a business proposal on how we could be more business efficient from what I learned from the company when I couldn't walk, working in the call center, in the first 2 weeks. So the first 2 weeks of starting in an entry-level role, I'm like, okay, so we're wasting a lot of time here, because the processing time to get to the outcome for the customers to put these clients on was too long. So I was just like monitoring things and thinking, okay, how could I display this in a conversation to sell to them? We could not only do this better, but we could actually enhance the business by increasing the revenue. So I wrote a business plan on that, sent it to him and the national operations manager at the time. And yeah, that quickly accelerated my role on that side of the business to be managing their workflow. So luckily, one didn't get fired because he saw what I did there. And then, yeah, we went through a stage of acquisitions where we were actually bought out. And the company that bought us said that I earned too much money to work on that side of the business. So I needed to work on the other side, which was the sales department that sold the big ticket items. So I ended up doing some proposals, as we talked earlier offline, of some of the concepts around dark prospecting and closed circuit selling, of how to apply that in everyday business in 2010. Now, Mark said, this is some revolutionary stuff you've got here, but no one is doing this. I've never seen anyone do this type of canvassing through social media platforms. He hadn't seen anyone even try to do that. And he didn't say that it was possible. He said he was overwhelmed with the fact that I've come up with this idea and a plan. He said, okay, let's apply that to the systems that we have, and let's park those ideas for right now. So that helped me get to where we are with these discussions, tying in with companies like Phone Ready Leads and White Rabbit Intel, talking about coining phrases like dark prospecting and closed circuit selling. So that brings me to answer your question of, if your next question is, what is it? We can talk about that.
No,
that's a long intro. Sorry.
No, but it's great, because I was only ever planning on asking, well, 3 questions in this. 1, who are you? 2, what's dark prospecting? 3, what's closed circuit selling? Happy days, job done. Where do people contact you? Yeah. 4 questions. No, so yeah. Wait, I've actually written the show notes already. Hashtag dark prospecting, hashtag closed circuit selling, and then the other one, because we want 3 hashtags, is hashtag high volume is dead, with a little skull and crossbones, because that's what Rob Turley told me I've got to put on everything. Yeah. And you just mentioned White Rabbit Intel. So yeah, it's all going to come together. So actually, is that the right order? There you go. I've just thrown another question in to show I can. Do we go dark prospecting first, then closed circuit selling?
Yeah. Because yeah. So one side of that is obviously. So would you like me to answer that?
What is dark prospect? What is dark prospecting?
So dark prospecting, how do we get to this? So how did all these actions happen with me starting to work with these global sales leaders, CEOs all around the world? It basically came about from, one, identifying they were good and they were onto something. And then 2, how did I apply that to videos that were getting traction with those companies? So what I coined dark prospecting was actually a discussion with Ryan Reisart. Now, how that came about is because I made a video discussing buyer-centric psychometric persona patterning. So let's break that down. For example, I started seeing things like, as you would know, people view you on LinkedIn in hidden mode, right? You can see who the company is if you've got the more expensive version. So if you jump across to Sales Navigator, you can actually see that company has not only viewed your profile, but also the company that you work for. You can click inside of that and see who of those decision makers in terms of job titles were those people. You can figure out who those people are, but better yet, you can click inside of that and actually check the buyer intent score. So then you can actually see visibly, not only did that person reach out to me in hidden mode, I can likely see that their company's also viewed our company to see if there's an interest there. I can see who the decision makers are, but I can also see the likeliness of the intent score of would they like to have a conversation with us to get started. So that coined the phrase of like the flip side of dark social, which is dark prospecting, because you can now actually measure that. Now, companies like what Rob Turley's doing with White Rabbit Intel is taking that completely next level, which is almost leading into the answer of fixing all of the problems in the sales is broken methodology, because that's giving you who's the likeliness to say yes to what you have right now, how receptive are they going to be to that conversation, and who out of them are more likely to say yes if you can fix all of these pieces in the sales methodology broken process, and what pattern disrupt is more likely to get them to say yes up front. So that is going to completely turn around how sales is done, because you're essentially doing it in reverse of how we've been taught to believe is the only way. So I guess does that answer your question?
No, it's really good, but I want to just go back over a couple of things, because I know some of the people listening to this, self a little bit, will be like, let's just double check we understand what these are. So people viewing hidden mode, okay, we know that because it says someone has looked at you. You've then said you jump into the paid version, Sales Navigator. Correct. Yep. And from there, you just do a little bit of detective work and you go, actually, now I know who exactly you are. Okay, I think people can follow that.
Yep.
And then it gives you a buyer intent score. So I know some people have never opened Sales Navigator, they won't have used it. Can you tell us what that is?
Yeah, so basically you can click on an insight inside of that. So there'll be like an indentation on your main feed on Sales Navigator to show that that company has viewed you. You can click inside of that to check who the decision maker in terms of titles are. But then if you go back and click on the company, scroll down, it'll actually tell you a buyer intent score inside of the Insights tab. So that gives you a score of readiness in terms of having a conversation and the likeliness of being able to work together. So until recently, I haven't actually seen anyone come on video and actually explain that that was possible with a visible link. Hence why obviously so many people hit me up with DMs asking me, how did I figure that out? But I just thought it was, I was literally, you can go back and check the video. I actually was asking, hey, has anyone else actually noticed this is a thing? Like, yeah, anyway, but what I found is, no, they hadn't. Obviously Rob had, because what they do is an extension on that. Yeah. I didn't expect the overwhelming response to, no, we didn't know that was possible. Can you show us?
Only 1% of people post on LinkedIn. So maybe that's a bit of a clue as to how well people are using it. I mean, you're getting some pretty deep stuff here. And I really do hope that some people listening go, whoa, hang on a minute. This is telling me who people are who are likely to buy from me if I now get in touch with them.
Correct. So if you look
if only there are a way of getting in touch with them. You sat on the damn platform to do that.
Yeah. But I guess the caveat of that. Yeah. Sorry, mate.
Yeah. No. So the caveat is,
you first got to understand how dark social works to work out how that's possible in reverse. So if you don't understand the work that Chris Walker's doing over at Refine Labs, you've got no chance of figuring that out. So I'll quickly break down what that looks like, which is the opposite of that situation, which is basically you and I have posted a piece of content. Someone's clipped that piece of information. They've chucked it in their company Slack channel. Everyone at that company X is raving about you and me having that discussion, but we don't necessarily know about that. So if you turn that around the other way, you've got a dark prospecting avenue, which is the buyer intent to have the reach out from some of those, from any part of that you would have done anywhere, which is So one and one. So like it's basically together. But until now, I don't think anyone's actually coined the correlation between the two. So yeah, that's how I came up with it.
I think there's a lot of people who might be needing a cold towel on the head at this stage, because there's a lot. In some ways, you can listen to this. If you're listening kind of while doing something else, people like doing that in podcasts and going, oh, he's just talking. He's talking foreign language. He's talking like woo-woo stuff. What you're saying,
Yep.
no, it's not woo-woo. It's maths. It's just stuff that you can do. It's connections. It's a process that if you do this stuff, you start here and you end up here. You're just doing something that you not been told how to do, because it's never really been thought about, but now we're thinking about it. Do it like this, and you're in a way better position to now do the stuff that you would always do anyway, which is go and have your human conversation.
Yeah.
But with people that are bothered.
I guess so the challenge will be for people that have understood what I've said, or the people that have already figured this out for themselves, which could be widespread. Let's not pretend that that's not possible, because I don't want to pretend that I'm the only person that's figured this out, because that would be bullshit. The challenge will be the application for how that fits into current business structures and modeling.
Yeah.
i.e., if company X is still measuring you on outbound phone calls and outbound canvas only, how do you then go, well, I can leapfrog this process by getting to here, by speaking to people that are more likely to say yes at this point of the contact without doing the churn? So that's the tricky part for people that are in the doing, that might be your senior SDRs, your business development managers, your full cycle salespeople, because there's no visibility on that measure unless they have a super sophisticated CRM that feeds into those actions on Sales Navigator. Whereas what I know and what you know is that most corporates don't have that, because they don't consider that a channel for the conversation. So there is the next problem, because you can't then show the visible work that you've done until you do the conversation over here, which is the end of the process of the work that you've done to get to the table, but you've still got there quicker. So yeah.
No, I'm just trying to think, like I could, because I think in pictures. I got this picture on mine. You got these 5 salespeople sat there. They got 100 calls they've got to make a day, and they go around. And how many did you make? Made 100. Okay, bang on target. How many did you do? 98. Cool, probably good. Yeah, what did you do? I did 106. Oh, well done you. How did you do? 1. What?
Yeah.
What did you do the rest of the day? I spoke to the person for the rest of the day that I rang, because they were so interested in what we're doing. We've actually had a massive questioning session. We went and got a cup of tea. We came back on. I've done a demo. I've done all this stuff, and we're probably going to meet up tomorrow to buy. Yeah, but you only did one call though. Kind of. I know it's a
that
bit
conversation is going to be happening more and more. So then if you feed in, imagine if you can get to a point in time where you can also grab that information from either doing stuff like this, but that being said, that's only going to work if you're making content towards your key target audience that's relevant. Otherwise, that whole system is highly unlikely that that's going to happen for you. However, you could obtain that information from what Rob Turley's doing at White Rabbit Intel. You could then take that information and get what Ryan Reisert and Sean Cease are doing at Phone Ready Leads, and wash that down further with people that are going to pick up the phone, that are more likely to have the conversation out of the people that are more likely to say yes. Then you've got my attention, because you've then got something where you can minimize the churn of what you've just described with the SDR function or the business development function, making 20 calls a day, 50 calls a day, 100 calls a day, 200 calls a day, depending on where you live. You might only need to do 4. And out of those 4, 2 of those people are going to go to an enterprise yes. Is that not more efficient?
Just sounds way more fulfilling as well, to be honest.
Yeah.
You'd sell that job to people easier as well. Yeah.
Imagine the customization that you can then do to make it real for the end user.
So, I mean, you pulled in kind of those other guys who are doing some stuff in this space. But what you're saying is actually you can still do some stuff without that. That's if you want to go, all singing, all dancing, let's get the whole shooting match. But let me go back to what you said there. It's like, you don't have to though. If you know how to do it, and that little sort of that background work, and then and this is an important piece, you are producing content that's going to be attractive to that target market. It doesn't work without that. I don't like the analogy of putting that bait out there, but it's that the thing which is going to attract them, the thing that's going to go, oh, that was really good. That's us. Oh, amazing. You've read our mind. That's a really key piece.
Yeah. So that is also feeding into the work that Chris Walker's doing at Refine Labs. So this is the other. So if you look at the methodology of the sales is broken process, which was basically Graham Hawkins' sales tribe took that by storm, right? Now, he was able to showcase the fact that business development functions and key account functions weren't getting that content piece right. And if they did, they wouldn't need to make the cold calls. What I'm saying is, well, what would happen if you fixed every part of the customer journey, for every part that people have said that have made companies for the prospecting, the buyer psychometric intent, the key account management, the activation, the revenue ops? What would happen if you fixed all of those problems in one link? Then you've really got something, but no one's actually done that. So that is leading me into what I would consider. If you could do that, you would also have a closed circuit, which is how I got to the conversation of coining closed circuit selling. Would be fixing all of those problems, which is what I have been working with in the past, which is where I have broken the rules and done it for people in corporates anyway. Mm-hmm. And I've had a tremendous amount of scale of results of this working in 3 different markets with 3 different products in 3 different industry verticals, which, I first thought, so this is another thing that ties back to the story. I was so impressed with how this worked in the financial sector. So what I did was I actually thought, how could we pattern interrupt? So what we're trying to do, right, in anything you're trying to sell, you're trying to get the person to the table to look at the proposal. So what would need to happen for them to have a tailored outcome-based proposal at the start? And what's the easiest way for them to say yes to viewing that information that's going to blow their socks off? So then I'm like, okay, why don't I just animate one of my proposals, like a formal proposal, like Death by PowerPoint from 2008, and turn that into a cartoon by changing some of the wording and making it into a sales copy. So I did. And then I didn't get permission, and I did it anyway. And the result was I basically would do a cold call to a company that I knew had that problem, that this was a tailored outcome solution to 2 of the biggest problems that they face. And I'd say something like this: hey, I know you don't have time to talk to me right now, but what I will do is drop a video in your inbox and you tell me if it makes sense to continue this conversation. So I did that for a swatch test of 8 in a row. Before I got to number 8, the first one had already messaged me back saying, when can we meet? Now, I don't care who you are, 87.5% of a cold call to a meeting proposal that they've already viewed that's going to go to contract is bloody magical. So then I thought, okay, I'm onto something here, which is a piece of, that's only one piece of what I consider the closed circuit selling with all the things we've already mentioned. So if you can fix every chunk of the sales broken methodology, you've really got something. Now, no one's yet to do that, but I have done that in another circumstance. So, but let's talk about how I failed doing that first. So then let
me just go back. So again, we just need a little moment on that, because there's something you said there that people are going, no, this guy's got himself all backwards. He's saying you put a tailored proposal into somebody's inbox before you've even met the person. No, where's your conversation? Where's your discovery? Where's your understanding them? Where's all the things that salespeople do? I'll just paraphrase what they're thinking. You're putting a tailored proposal in without even meeting somebody. What hocus pocus is going on here?
So wipe away all the structures that we think we know. Start there. What would need to happen to get them the best outcome? Work backward from that. Right. So if you already know their biggest problems are X, Y, Z, and you go to the trouble of making them an animated cartoon that showcases that you not only understand their biggest problems, but how to solve that problem, and it's a co-branded piece up front, but you've called them with a permission call. You've got them all dizzy because you've asked permission. I'm going to send you this. Then you've asked a secondary piece of, would it make you tell me if it makes sense after you've viewed that to continue this conversation. So what that does is spur the curiosity of what just happened? How? What? And so yeah, they will view it.
No, I get it.
It won't work every time, but it will work.
But if you think about it, everyone can do this, because otherwise, if you want to go through the traditional style, I'm going to pick up the phone and ask if we can have a chat, and I'm going to have a chat, and then I want to get to put a proposal. I must have an idea that I've got a reasonable idea of what's going on with you, and I can do something to solve it. Otherwise, why would I even try and have those initial conversations anyway? So all you're doing is go, yeah, so let's just get it a bit more accurate, produce the stuff.
Yep.
But I think you're doing something cleverer, if I'm right, because you're honing in even that message, not just it's like, yeah, you're a sales director, so you probably want to make some more sales. And like Fred, I don't think that video is not going to get you anywhere. That's not precise enough, but you can do some cuter things to go, right, this is what's going on in your world, and this is how you deal with it. To such a wow degree, they're going, we will talk. So because if you get that bit right, there's a load more I want to say to you.
Yeah. So think about this. So if whether that channel is the video proposal up front or you've done a face-to-face meeting, if they don't leave with what on earth just happened, you haven't hit the mark. So how do we make that happen in reverse is where the magic source is, right? So that is basically getting to the end part of the closed circuit, because you already know what is going to make it real for them, what the key drivers are, and what emotional ties are to get them a response, and who in your business is that going to make you look good too. Here's how that's going to happen. So that is where we need to get to. Now, the problem is the traditional structures and silos in place don't allow for that to happen. So for example, if you work for a massive corporate and you said, hey, look, Mr. Marketing Manager, Mr. Communications Manager, and Mr. Demand Marketing, can you help me work on this? And can you help me make this into a video proposal from my sales copy? Let me know how that goes, because it's not going to go very well. So until we break away the traditional structures of who does what to get the result, we can't operate in the manner of what's the best outcome for the end user, and how do we get there in the quickest way possible. So that's the other internal challenge, isn't it? But that leads you into, if a company is going to do all this, they're kind of already leaning towards doing all the things that are in a closed circuit anyway, which means it could be the best end-to-end service delivery the globe's ever seen, which means to do that, you're probably going to have a team of people that only do that, right? So full cycle sales, marketing, cross-pollination that can deliver up front is where I see everything heading. So
again, I'm just going to come back a little bit. This is great, mate. I really enjoy this. Key drivers, emotional ties, the psychological motivators.
Yeah,
that's what people have to talk to other people about to understand. You can't just drop a proposal in their inbox expecting it's going to be hitting the mark on those, can you?
Well, you can if you've done your research properly. But let's break that down.
Yeah.
So if you look at the modeling for the SDR or the BDM model for the guys that are still sitting in the chair making 20 completely cold calls, 50 completely cold calls, 100 completely cold calls, 200 completely cold calls.
Yeah.
I would challenge that they've actually had any time to research how they would be able to deliver that information and what that information would need to be to make them say yes. They might be able to manipulate the person into take this meeting and use some really good shuffling to get there. But the likeliness of the close rate of that meeting is a lot lower than what it would be by being hyper-personalized. So we need to shift focus on what good looks like.
I think that's totally fair. No, because if your job is to get the meeting, if I need to get the meeting, I don't actually really care about that stuff. I'm not going to go in that deep. I might be being a bit disingenuous with some great SDRs and people out there. But really, if you need me to do that, I'm just going to crack on. I'm going to do that. I'm not going to get into it. Then the next person, it's all right. I've got limited time as well. I've got to get this demo out. I can't go into all this
Yep.
stuff. It's bound to be these kind of things. We're not actually, is what you're saying, spending the time and effort to get into that level of people going, wow, that call I just had with that person was brilliant, because they've made me think and they've started saying stuff to such a degree. You're saying it's just kind of not happening anyway, but there's a way we can make it happen without even trying to do it that way around. Yeah,
but
cool.
The only way we're going to be able to do that is break away from the traditional structures, which is going to be a massive massage of change.
Yeah, because if it's, well, I've got 20 salespeople, I do 100 calls a day, and so I need 10,000 leads. So I've got to keep feeding the beast, and that's what I manage, and that's me. It's my identity. It's what I do. You're saying that they're only going to do 20 calls?
Not even
a month. Wow.
I'm saying if you did it properly, you might only need to do 5.
Okay. Why am I going to vote for that? It's like a turkey voting for Christmas. You just taken my whole role away, my department, everything, all gone.
Well, it's going to cause a whole lot of disruption, isn't it?
Well, taking it away if I've changed it. Assuming you could change with it.
Yeah. Well, then you've got to also consider that role of that person that you've just mentioned. Is that the right person to lead this team of doing end-to-end service delivery of perfection? And in most cases, the answer is no, because they would have no idea what we've just discussed here. Now, that's a big statement, but unless all the companies in the world are adopting what we've said here today, I would challenge that it's 100% true.
No, look, we're being a little bit broad brush, and that is for the sake of time. And you're going, well, no, we're not, Fred. It's just because it's right. That's how it is.
Yeah.
Not broad brush at all. That's facts. Cool. Right. So that's the dark. The dark prospecting is the sort of getting behind the scenes, because they've looked at some really good stuff that you've done, and then you worked out who's who, and you know you're kind of hitting home, and you know it's good stuff because you've worked out the kind of people that you are needing to speak to, because you've studied that type of person you're going to sell to so deeply, because you're looking at their psychology, their value. I've got a lot of time for value graphics. David Allison talks about that, and it's that's interesting stuff. So yeah, you are going to be on point. But not everyone will like this video. Not everyone is supposed to like this video. The people who are supposed to like the video are going to like it. That's then going to sort of start something behind the scenes that you can then start to follow up on. And then you're now going, well, this is all pretty cool. The whole of the circuit is now going to set up for the fact that that's what we're looking to do. That's what we're going to deliver. And we're having our conversations in this kind of order. That's the closed circuit piece.
Yep. Yeah. So if we could, that's exactly right. So you could then eventually work in with White Rabbit Intel and take that further of if we could also work out around the other way, not only who are the more people that are more likely to say yes to the conversation, you could also use some of that pattern personalization on what would be the key drivers to get the information to allow you to do the pattern disrupts at every point in the process. So that's important. Yeah.
Cool.
Unless you've got your own tech that can do that right now, or you can, you're a whiz at working this out. That you're going to need some help with AI to work out what some of those things are at certain gates in the process. But that's where I see it all heading. But you could still do it manually, to draw back to what you said earlier. You could still figure that out manually, and I have done that in the past, which kind of, there's a slight segue there, because I needed to basically discuss how we got here after my original story. After I figured this all out, this was like 2015, where I led a global FMO team to breaking records in new business. Now, I kept getting told that we weren't allowed to do any of this stuff because that was marketing's domain. Now, after moving countries after that role, I then just did it anyway, right? So, and it worked. So now that caused so much disruption that I was like, yeah, okay, I'm really onto something. But what I thought was the market was telling me I needed to teach people how to do it. So I started trying to consult to companies by showing them at a real high level, you need to do this, 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 and this as a training piece. But what I found is the companies that I worked with that accelerated, and the best one being an FMCG company that I got to 8 times revenue in 8 months. Now, the difference between the companies that couldn't do it was they couldn't bridge the gap between my level of teaching them versus the ones that I did for them skyrocketed. So then I was like, okay, so that's why it didn't work, because one, the stuff that I was trying to teach these companies was too advanced for the market that I was in. Two, they didn't have the skill set to understand what I was saying. They agreed what I was saying was correct, but they couldn't actually facilitate from the high level delivery that I was giving them. So yeah, I found that then I was like, okay, so that didn't work. So then I had more personal circumstances in my life. My house actually burnt down. So
Do they call you Lucky Adam?
Oh man. So immediately before that, before I had that success with the FMCG company, I got hit by a car, T-boned at an intersection, and I broke I had fractured some of my T3 and I had a post-concussion injury. So for a period of time, I was trying to deliver on this level of expertise through consulting to companies, but my brain wasn't working properly. So that was a challenge.
You're telling him all this stuff which sounds upside down and backwards. It's because he's had a car accident. The guy's lost the plot completely. Yeah. He's telling us about putting proposals in before he's speaking to anyone. He's gone. He's lost it.
Yeah. But so funny. I guess through each of these points of learning, it shapes who and what we are to refocus or hyper-focus. What do we need to do to get the best outcome, and how do we get there? So that's, I got hit by the car, recovered from that, recovered from post-concussion. I've still got back pain. It is what it is. Then the house burnt down when I was going to one of those consultancy meetings. Legit. Then I went back to doing it back to doing just work for a corporate. And basically I had to minimize the amount of knowledge that I had to fit into their box of doing X, Y, Z. Yeah. They were very open to me teaching them some of the business development traits, but in fairness, I was probably only working at 10% of what my ability was, because they had no understanding of how to build these circuits. And you could take that further, because anyone with half a brain would then go, okay, if you can fix all of those problems, you're talking about end-to-end service delivery, then you're nudging on vertical integration, and you're saying, hang on, I can own both ends of the game here. But no one has made that correlation. So I was like, okay, so to fit into corporate structures, I went back to just doing strictly BD and BD coaching for how they wanted it to fit into their pattern. And then that kind of still led me to where we are right now. I'm still doing that in a multiple facet role. But yeah, just thought it was an important segue to talk about how I first I realized I thought I was onto something in 2015, which I am. Because no one else is still posting about this stuff now, which is 2022. But I thought that the vehicle was teaching people how to do it. And boy, was I wrong. Because it only worked when I did it for them. Yeah. So then I was like, okay. And I only actually came to that realization genuinely recently, because I started unpacking, okay, well, why did those other companies fail from me giving the step-by-step? And I was like, well, why did the other ones work? And then I was like, well, hang on, the ones that worked and skyrocketed, I did it.
What's the common denominator? Oh, it's me. Yeah.
But to be fair, I honestly didn't even notice. I didn't draw the connection until I was like, well, hang on. Anyway, but then I realized that's the thing, right? That's the thing. So that became a whole nother thing. There's another piece of information that goes in there, but I don't want to take 2,000 hours of your time. I built another project with this, which was basically how to redefine a financial market for all of New Zealand and create a new industry, which I learned from working in the Australian banking sector. Now, I went to venture capital in 2017, and they said, this is brilliant. How on earth did you get the people that run the tax code for fringe benefit tax to agree that you were correct? And I said, well, that was actually the easy part. I just searched who they were on the internet, found the papers they wrote, asked them questions that said, right here, if you had any questions, got them to reply to me, telling me that I was correct with what I needed for the paper to prove that I could build this industry. And then they wrote back to me, why did I ask those questions? I'm like, what? How do you not see what I've just told you? Anyway,
I've just applied my own system.
They couldn't see it. Yeah, so if they couldn't see it, the guys that basically own the game of the taxation, there was a little chance that I could actually convince the venture capitalists to give me capital to build the platform to create the industry. So I got that parked. This is while I was still trying to consult at the same time. I parked that and then tried again 2 years ago. Got, I think, 3 or 4 yeses, but they wanted to own the whole game. I'm like, man, no way, man. Like, if anyone who does any research knows how this happened in Australia and how it's actually applicable anywhere on the planet, there's no way I'm going to give you ownership of basically giving you a creation to get into every household, to every company on the planet with how to on-sell something else that's going to give them value as a tax deduction to make it basically the best case scenario for everyone. But yeah, I also worked on that at the same time and realized it was too advanced. But I took the learning from those systems of the closed circuit into what I'm doing now, having these conversations with the vehicle of disruptor. So that brings us to now.
That brings us to now. Well, it's like you do a podcast yourself, mate, and you know how to time these things and end up on the. Tell me what my next question is then. No,
I don't.
No, it's just absolutely fascinating. There's a lot of stuff in there that I think, some podcasts you listen to on ×2, on others that you probably need to listen on 0.5 so that it can slow down and you can just get your head around this. This is probably one of them, actually. And I mean that, with utter best intent. Cool. So that's where we are now. So founder of Disruptor, that's what you're doing. You are between sort of, yes, you can train people, but really it works better if we say, no, we're serious about this, we want to go whole hog. We obviously need to know more about it. So where do people get in contact with you? Are you going to get in contact with them before they even realize that you're going to get in contact with them? And
if I get in touch with Rob's team, I probably will. No, and then I'll get Ryan Reisart and Sean Cease to screen them for me. No,
and we are joking here, but that actually isn't such a silly thing. But if somebody's listening to this and thinks, no, this is really cool, I want to take this a bit deeper, how do they get in touch?
Disruptor .ur, not or.co is the website. Real basic. There's a bit of information on there. Got to give a shout out to my man Johnny Stofko. He got me on his podcast the global podcast called Ungoogleable, where he's had some massive guests, and he basically created the traction for all of people like yourself that probably got me in the conversation with all of these sales podcasts now asking me, how on earth did I figure any of this out? So massive props to Johnny Stofko. Check out Ungoogleable. Follow me on LinkedIn, add me on LinkedIn. I'll reply to everybody. Let's have a conversation of how we can help you win. And I probably wouldn't be a salesperson if I didn't ask, how can I help you with hybrid selling?
How can you help me with hybrid selling? Actually, there is a project that I'm involved with at the moment where we are just looking at expanding out into the Gulf and sort of running some teams there. And if we can, we're already planning on doing stuff in line with what happens in that part of the world, but also a bit different. That's a bit of a tautology, but we could be talking some pretty cool ideas to people over there. So yeah, this podcast here on many levels. I'll talk to you about that one offline.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity of coming on and your time of listening to my story and dissecting it although we probably talked for probably an hour, still in short form from how I actually got to all of that. But yeah, I'm sure that we'll have more discussions between you and I offline of how we can cross-pollinate and apply to help people.
We will do, mate. We definitely will. Thank you so much.
Thanks, mate.